What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Cosmic Wonder. I'm your host, Warren Thompson, and we finally got Daredevil in SheHulk. It took 8 episodes, but it finally happened. And even though the finale is next week, we only have 1 episode left, we still don't really know who the main villain is of this show. Yes, we know that it is intelligencia, but who is behind intelligencia? What do they want? And who is the real villain behind the show? There are many different theories out there right now that it could be Todd, it could be Titania, it could be Red Hulk, it could be Murdoch. There's a lot of people it could be. So today we're going to talk about the finale and who the villain might be and how it might set up other future Marvel movies that are coming up pretty soon. And of course, we'll break down the episode and talk about some pretty cool Easter eggs they included in episode 8. If you're a fan of Marvel, be sure to subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell as we talk about Marvel almost every day. Now, this episode is titled Ribbit and Rip It, which is the catchphrase of LeapFrog, and it's kind of a pun off of Grip It and Rip It. And I kind of like how they portrayed LeapFrog in this episode. In the comics, he's not really a major character, but he is kind of the butt of the joke in the comics a lot, and I'm expecting it to kind of be the same in the MCU. I don't really think we'll see him pop up much more. Now, in this episode, they kind of combined 2 characters into one. In the comics, LeapFrog is actually Vincent Patilio, who is Eugene's father. In She-Hulk, we meet Eugene Patilio, who is LeapFrog, but in the comics, he is actually Frogman. Vincent Patilio was a failed inventor, and due to him not making any money, he resorted to criminal activities to provide for his wife and his son, Eugene. He ends up creating these coils that allow him to jump really, really high, so he ends up donning the frog costume, calling himself Leapman, and he ends up trying to rob a bunch of different places. However, he runs into Daredevil a few times until Daredevil eventually manages to arrest him. They go to court, in which LeapFrog tries to escape, but he jumps out the courtroom window and he ends up breaking his legs, which is kind of what we see happen in the warehouse when he tries to run away. He jumps out the window, his suit fails, he breaks both his legs. Now, it's worth noting that Eugene in the comics is actually good. Frogman is a good character, but his father, Vincent, LeapFrog, is bad. So they switched it here on us. In fact, when She-Hulk is talking to her boss, he says that Eugene's father, Vincent, is one of their biggest clients and that he's very, very rich. So that's very different than the comics. And of course, instead of Eugene being Frogman, he is LeapFrog and he is bad. But just like in the comics, he is still kind of the butt of the joke. In the fight that we see in the beginning, when he uses his rocket boosters, he ends up catching himself on fire. So he wants to sue Luke, who designed his outfit, but Jen doesn't want to represent him because Luke also designs all of her clothes and she's had a really hard time finding clothes that fit her. And this is where we hear the part where her boss says you have to represent him. His father, Vincent, is one of their biggest clients. So we go to court, and of course, who is representing Luke? Matt Murdock, Daredevil himself. Now, it was amazing to see Matt Murdock back in action. The way he talked about the law and the way that he argued in the court was simply fantastic. I love seeing it again. He was very calm, he was very cool, collected, he was also very charming, and we actually learned something extremely important during the scene, that the Sokovia Accords have been repealed. If you don't remember the Sokovia Accords, they were introduced in Captain America Civil War. The Sokovia Accords were a legal act that was designed to regulate the activities of enhanced individuals, including members of the government like S.H.I.E.L.D. and of course private organizations like the Avengers. They were basically designed to keep enhanced individuals in check, to keep superheroes in check so they can't just do what they please, but they have to report to the United Nations. Now, in the comics, this does lead to superheroes' identities being disclosed and them being attacked because people know who they actually are. In this scene, Matt Murdock states that the Sokovia Accords have been repealed and superheroes need their identities to be concealed. They need them to be private. So this was a huge, important scene. And I'm sure this will come into play in Captain America New World Order, which we're about to get into in a bit. Now, of course, we find out that Eugene/LeapFrog is still kind of the butt of the joke in the MCU. As he states in court that he used jet fuel instead of regular fuel, of course, Luke says that was against his instructions. So, of course, the case kind of gets thrown out right away. Matt Murdock and Luke win. After this, Jen ends up meeting Matt Murdock again in a bar. They end up talking to each other, and Jen actually says that Eugene was actually dumber than she thought he was. She asked Matt Murdock how he knew about the jet fuel. Of course, he smelled it due to his enhanced senses. And of course, as is mentioned in Spider-Man No Way Home, he's a really good lawyer. Now, here's a really cool scene where Matt Murdock is actually kind of mentoring Jen. Of course, he knows that Jen is She-Hulk, but at this point in time, she does not know that Matt Murdock is Daredevil. In fact, she doesn't even know who Daredevil is because when she meets him, he has to actually tell her, "I'm Daredevil." Now, in this scene, we get a really cool mention of Hell's Kitchen, back in New York, where Matt Murdock is from, where he does all the dirty work as Matt Murdock as a lawyer, and of course, as Daredevil as a superhero. It's worth noting that in this series, obviously, we get Daredevil's red and yellow suit, which is taken right from the comics. His suit is originally red and yellow because it's designed after his father's boxing robe. His father was a boxer who ends up getting killed because he refused to throw a match. This is actually what sparks Matt Murdock to be a lawyer and, of course, a superhero as well. And this actually ties into what he tells Jen at the bar, saying that she's in a unique position to actually do some real good. Because Jen Walters can use the law to help people when society fails them, and She-Hulk can help people when the law fails them. And this is obviously what he does as well, being a lawyer, and of course being a superhero. Now they both end up getting called away. Matt being called away because Luke has been kidnapped by Eugene, aka LeapFrog, and Jen gets called away by Todd, who we all just love so much. At the meeting, Todd explains that he bought an authentic Wakandan war spear. However, apparently Wakanda wants it back because it was stolen by colonizers, which could be a reference and callback to Claw. Now, what's really interesting about this scene is that it doesn't really go anywhere. Of course, he's a slime ball, and she refuses to kind of help him, so it makes you question the importance of the scene, but the importance of the scene is the fact that Todd now has something made of vibranium. And I do believe that Todd is at least one of the villains, if not the main villain of She-Hulk, and I think he used this Wakandan spear, because it's made out of vibranium, to create that big vibranium needle that we saw at the end of episode 6. I do believe Todd is Hulk King, but I don't believe he is the person who is in charge of intelligencia. I think he's working for them, and he's in charge of a specific task, but I do believe that there's somebody above him, and we'll get to that in just a bit. Now, eventually, Jen gets a call from Eugene, who says he is being attacked, and of course, he's being attacked by Daredevil because Eugene actually kidnapped Luke. However, Jen uses this opportunity to kind of reflect on the words that Matt told her in the bar, that She-Hulk can actually save people when the law fails them. So she grabs her new She-Hulk outfit, which of course Luke designed for her, and she goes and she meets Eugene and Daredevil. From here, we get a really awesome fight between Daredevil and She-Hulk, and we see a lot of really cool things from the comics. Daredevil is back in action, and his moves are better than ever. He's very smooth, and his moves are pretty seamless. Ultimately, She-Hulk would end up hitting Daredevil with a thunderclap, which of course probably hurt more than it would a normal person, because considering how it hurt Hulk's ears in episode 1 and Matt Murdock has enhanced senses, it probably hurt him a little bit more. It also launches him in the air, which causes She-Hulk to be able to grab him, and she instantly takes off his mask and discovers that it's Matt Murdock. She instantly asks if he's pretending to be blind, and he says, "No, I have a spatial method that I use to see." She says it's like echolocation, and he says, "Kind of. I basically have really good hearing, or at least I did." And this is a reference to that thunderclap that I was speaking of, how it hurt him more than it would a normal person because of his enhanced hearing. But of course, he's joking about it, so he's not really injured. Jen asks him, "Are you like a superhero?" In which immediately Matt Murdock gets a weird expression on his face, and she asks, "Are you the Gold Devil?" In which again, he is even more confused, and he says, "I'm Daredevil," wondering how she hasn't heard of him. From here, Daredevil and Jen go to save Luke from Eugene, and we get more of an insight on Daredevil's powers. He says there are 25 goons in the building. He knows this because he can hear their heartbeats. Daredevil wants to sneak in and take out each of them one by one, but Jen says, "I'm a Hulk, why don't I just go in and smash?" Ultimately, it's a combination of both of these that they do to eventually get to Eugene. And it's awesome because we get one of the infamous Daredevil hallway fight scenes. It's as if we are watching a Netflix episode of Daredevil. It's fantastic, and I loved every second of it. Now here we get a look at Jen's She-Hulk costume that Luke designed for her, and this is taken pretty much exactly from the comics. We get the purple and white look, but it also looks like it's been upgraded a little bit and kind of looks like the Avengers Quantum Realm suits. Now Jen, She-Hulk smashes, as she says, and this causes Eugene and his goons to hear them. This is where we get a look inside of the lair, and we can actually see that LeapFrog has a LeapFrog signal. Of course, this is taken from Batman, as Batman has the back signal, and we notice some other things like an arcade machine of the old game Frogger, which is obviously very fitting for LeapFrog. Now, of course, Daredevil and She-Hulk end up cleaning up, they rescue Luke, the cops come, and we see Daredevil and She-Hulk talking, and then of course, she takes him home and She-Hulk ends up smashing again. Daredevil does an hilarious walk of shame afterwards, and then we actually get yet another Wolverine Easter egg in She-Hulk. Jen breaks the fourth wall and says that this would be the perfect time to end the episode. However, Nikki shows up and reminds her of the gala. Nikki pops out from around the corner with makeup brushes in her hand, but she jumps out and she uses them like they're Wolverine claws. Notice that she has only 3 in each hand. This is very, very specific and is not the first Wolverine Easter egg that we got. Remember in the first episode, episode, we got an Easter egg that said, in an online article, that said, man fights with metal claws in bar brawl, basically confirming that Wolverine already exists in the MCU, and now we get this as well. We also have the announcement that Hugh Jackman is returning as Wolverine, but of course we know that he's not going to be the main MCU Wolverine. He's probably only going to be in Deadpool 3, and then hopefully Secret Wars, but will not be the main Wolverine moving forward. But She-Hulk kind of hints that we could be getting that main Wolverine introduced relatively soon, as it's clear here that he does exist in the MCU. Now, of course, Jen goes to the gala, where we can see that her parents are there to support her, and then we also see that Todd is conveniently there as well. And of course, as Jen and other female lawyers are accepting their awards, Intelligencia interrupts. They hate She-Hulk and they talk about how she should not be awarded, they call her a slut, and this obviously pisses Jen off as it would anybody else. And Jen ends up going full Hulk and smashing the TVs and gets very, very angry. And this could possibly be the first time that we've seen her not really in control of her anger or her Hulk form. Now, she sees some people that are clearly behind what is happening, part of Intelligencia, they're wearing face masks, and she goes and she manages to grab one, and I do believe that this is Todd. The hair does look kind of similar. Todd was also wearing glasses inside of the gala, and this person is wearing glasses as well. Now, the DODC shows up, and we can see that they kind of have the same guns that they were using in Ms. Marvel. It is quite convenient how they showed up relatively fast, almost like they knew what was going to happen. This is very suspicious, but it's most likely that somebody from Intelligencia tipped them off. Now, as I mentioned, I do believe that the villain is going to be Todd, but I don't think he is the only villain, and I definitely don't think that he is in charge of Intelligencia. But what I do believe is happening is that we're going to have multiple people going up against She-Hulk. I do think that Todd, in some way, shape, or form, is going to inject himself with She-Hulk's blood and possibly become a Hulk. I do also believe that the leader is behind Intelligencia. We know that Captain America 4 is going to feature more than one Hulk. And with the leader confirmed to be the villain of Captain America 4, this makes sense. It also makes sense that this episode and the finale would lead us into Captain America 4, as it does have the Hulk connection and the She-Hulk blood. Now, we also do have Murdock coming in Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. In the comics, Murdock is a key member of Intelligencia along with the leader, but there also are a couple of more people who could be villains. Keep in mind, Titania is still out there somewhere, really hating on She-Hulk right now. We know that she is very rich, so she does have the means of possibly teaming up with Intelligencia, possibly funding them, because she might want She-Hulk's blood for herself so she can become even stronger and so she could defeat She-Hulk finally. Also, Mallory in the comics does end up helping a company that tries to create their own She-Hulk as well. We did see her actually with Todd at the law firm in another episode. This could actually hint that the two of them are indeed working together. Now, overall, I do think that the big reveal is going to be that Todd is actually behind everything. Again, in episode 6, we saw people in a lab who now had a vibranium needle. Again, I think this is most likely made from the vibranium Wakandan war spear that Todd obtained, that they somehow managed to make that into a needle. This is why Todd can't simply give back the spear, and why he needs a lawyer. It is also even more suspicious that he asked to meet with Jennifer Walters / She-Hulk when he before was already meeting with Mallory. So most likely Todd is the big twist that Jennifer Walters has teased in this episode. She also did mention a Red Hulk, and there is of course the possibility that Thunderbolt Ross could show up as a Red Hulk. There's a big rumor going around that Harrison Ford has been cast as Thunderbolt Ross to essentially recast the character since sadly William Hurt passed away. But since the leader is going to be the main villain of Captain America 4, it makes sense that Thunderbolt Ross would show up again as well, especially with the Thunderbolts coming. So all in all, I do think Todd is the big twist, but of course he is going to be working for somebody else as well. This person is most likely going to be the leader or perhaps Thunderbolt Ross. But let me know what you think in the comments down below. Did you enjoy this Daredevil episode? And who do you think is the real villain of She-Hulk? Let me know your thoughts down below. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to stay up to date on all the latest MCU news. For live updates, you can follow me on Instagram or Twitter. And as always, thank you all so much for watching. Woof woof.